Привет, Yulia. Capitalism. Today is Friday, February the 3rd, here in San Francisco, and it's about 1:45 p.m. Today's message, again, I hope it finds you feeling better as we get clearer about the situations and the circumstances that evolves around your imprisonment. It is becoming quite clear through Eugenia's testimony to the U.S. Senate that you are being held um, illegally, that not only are you being held and imprisoned illegally, but what's even more detrimental is the fact that Yanukovych is using his power to move Ukraine in a direction that could put it in harm's way. And so today's message, I want to talk to you about capitalism, because this week, through talking through these videos, doing homework and research, and looking at the news and adding up the events that have taken place over the past few years, couple of years, it is easy to begin to see exactly what is going on with the expansion of capitalism. And there are 3 points that I want to mention on this video that has me aroused to the point of saying that capitalism will fail. Okay? And those 3 points I'm looking at is the failure of the New York Stock Exchange's Euronext to merge in the Frankfurt market. I'm looking at Ukraine in your imprisonment. Your imprisonment alone is a sign of a failed attempt by capitalism to expand in the Ukraine and furthermore into Russia. And the other piece of evidence that we have to look at is the EU missile defense, or NATO rather, utilizing the EU to create a missile defense system. Okay, so what I want to talk about when it comes to the New York Stock Exchange and its merger with the Frankfurt market is the fact that I was in the U.S. markets from 2009 until last month. I decided to leave the U.S. market, and it's a great deal of information that I love to share with you. But again, I want to piece information to you because not all of it applies to certain topics. But my own individual experience with Wall Street was tremendous. It was very tremendous, especially here in San Francisco, where they have a closed Pacific Stock Exchange. It's been closed now for over 10 years. So I have a very interesting story when it comes to the New York Stock Exchange, but more so than the story that I want to share with you with my own personal experience is the timing that the New York Stock Exchange uh, they use with this merger in the Frankfurt market. And what I mean by all of this is that the U.S. government, which is the head of capitalism, and its foreign policy, first of all decided that they needed quarterly earnings. They needed to earn quarterly, um, in terms of the dollar. And so what that did was it created a lot of sovereign debt in Europe. So my first thing is that how I'm able to see capitalism moving is the fact that it moved on debt. It moved on slavery. You see, and once you begin to look at, okay, well, what's behind building up and accumulating debt in foreign countries? Okay, then you can see Egypt. You can see if we understand a little bit about what Egypt was, and the institution of slavery that it instituted, then we should understand that that was a world institution, because at that time when Egypt had a king and the king was over slaves, it was it consisted of everybody that was in the world, because you would have had to travel to Egypt to be in slavery. Now, today what we see is capitalism under the so-called you don't have a choice because you owe me, so now you become indebted to me, and I am a slave owner in terms of my history. Then the only thing I can do is try to expand. But as you can see, that is not what controls the world. So you can see that the U.S.'s attempt to utilize debt in the Eurozone as a means to advance capitalism is going to fail automatic. And that is why we see the failed merger between the New York Stock Exchange and the Frankfurt markets, because the Frankfurt markets already know that this U.S. is involved in price manipulation. They've seen it over the past few years, and that is where I get involved with my own personal experiences. If you've ever had to deal with the New York Stock Exchange personally, and you were not on the bandwagon in terms of expanding capitalism, then you understand how prices are manipulated in the U.S. markets. And that's my story, and I'll be more than happy to share it with you in another video. So we can see capitalism failing already as a result of this failed merger between New York Stock Exchange's Euronext and the Frankfurt markets. Secondly, we can look at the Ukraine based off of your imprisonment, and we can actually say through Eugenia's testimony a lot of truth has come out. Okay, because what I like to do when I listen to a conversation is I like to listen to what a person is saying, and I like to listen for what a person is intending. Okay, to me, what I heard on the video was the fact that the U.S. needs Ukraine to get in control of media and money. Okay, why media? Why free press? All of a sudden, I'm looking at a bunch of garbage, and if the U.S. had its way, okay, in terms of media, we already know, based off of some of our tweets, that abortions and things of that nature has a bad light when it comes to media in the United States. So what we need to already look at is, why is the United States so involved with media? Okay, because you cannot promote. It's the same as propaganda in a war. Back in the old days, in a war, what you would have is a plane flying over, dropping all kind of propaganda for people, leaflets and things of that nature for people to pick up and read to understand. That was their only way of getting their media into the country. Okay, now they're utilizing government personnel to try to influence media and using money to influence government personnel. And why is that? Because my belief is that in the U.S., the biggest enemy to the United States and its expansion of capitalism is Russia with its wealth of resources. Okay, because both economies, one economy is running off of borrowed, and one economy is running off of resources. Okay, now that means that leaves room for one thing to happen: rob and steal for the economy that wants to borrow. Okay, and that is what I'm seeing going on today, and I can see where it is advancing with your imprisonment. And what is the U.S. finally using as a cover? A NATO missile defense. So all of these things, we can see the U.S. is on the move to expand capitalism, but we can also see that the U.S. is going to ultimately fail because you are being treated inhumane. Why is that? Why is that? Because you'll find that inside of capitalism, people are actually behaving inhumane. Okay? So you could draw a direct line with how you're being treated with what is to be expected out of people that are living in a capitalist society. And that's why I said take a look at some of the faces in the background while Eugenia was presenting her testimony to the U.S. Senate. And you can see some of the faces in the women who actually feel like what's been going on is not enough. So, with that being said, I just want to say that what we're actually looking at is the failure of capitalism in its attempt to expand globally. When in reality, what we are looking at is a globalized world that will not be involved in slavery. Okay, so we have to give time for all of these things to break open, which we already see it breaking. But I can promise you that in the end there will be a war. I can promise you it will be a war because we cannot stack the deck on Iran and all through the Middle East and expect someone to a man to sit back and say all you're trying to do is spread monkey business on me. Okay, because here again we're going into a gay culture. Okay, and by the way, gay culture don't see anything. Okay, so you can see Yanukovych. We can watch how he's looking, and we can see he has no idea of what's going on. And that's why I shared the photos of Germany and China linking up. And there are so many other things that are going on that in the gay world and in the capitalist society they have no idea of what is there that God has put in place. Okay? So with that being said, I hope you're doing better and I hope you're feeling better. And that's just a little insight on how I feel about the direction that we're moving in and your release, your inevitable release from prison, and because we're going to tackle the real issue. Okay, so we'll talk to you a little later. Okay, Paka.